What is crack liking gangsters? Before we dive into this tutorial, let me show you this system that we have over here. If I hit the play button, we have the player who is moving and he has the health at the top left corner. We have this green light currently. When it detects the player, it will be red, as you can see, and automatically the enemy turned red is now searching and shooting the player and shooting and shooting. Now he has killed the player, and the light will reset again and search for the player. We can spawn the player by clicking the button over here and repeat the whole process. The point is, when the light detects the player, the enemy is going to see where the player is, and there you go, start shooting him and deal damage until he kills him. It's a nice system. It's a lot of things are happening behind the scene. This is an advanced system, so if you need it for your game, this is a tutorial for you. Anyways, subscribe, hit the like and all of that stuff, comment, and join my academy. Go to awesometools.com academy, and there you go, you will see the academy. So anyways, I will see you guys, well, you know, in this video, because we are creating this tutorial right now. What is up, my game dev gangsteronia? Before we start, this is not a beginner's project, so you need to have some knowledge about Unreal Engine and blueprints before you can dive into this tutorial. And also, if you want to follow along, the link to the project is down below in the description, or you can go on awesometools.com, sign up, and you will be sent a link where you can download the project to follow along. Now, when you open the project, this is what you will see, and if I hit the play button right now, we basically have these two actors. This is our player at the right, and this is the enemy at the left. Nothing is happening because, well, this is the starter project. It's not meant something to happen. Anyways, open the BP enemy character, which is located over here. So if you go into the content and blueprints, here you have the enemy character and you have BP my character. So open these two, or basically we need the enemy and we need the patrol light. So this is what we need. So open the BP enemy character again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this detection area, and this is in the construction script. So go inside of the construction script over here, and from there I'm going to say set relative location. So set the relative location, and I'm going to plug this in over here. And the relative location is going to be right here where the detection area relative location is. And by the way, you can see that all of these variables are also prepared so that we don't go through the preparation of all that. You can just skim through these variables and see what they are, and you will notice from their names for what we are going to use them. So it's simple as that, because it will take us probably 5 to 10 minutes or even 15 minutes of tutorial time, so just to set up these variables, and we don't need to do that. So after we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the box extent, which is again for the detection area. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to say here set box extent, and this goes over here. And the box extent is going to be the detection area scale. So this is that box extent. There you go. Voila, plug it in. Update overlaps is going to be checked. We also need to go here, take the mesh, and I am going to create dynamic material instance for this mesh and plug that in over here. And that material instance is going to be here enemy material, which is simply a dark material. That's all there is to it. And for that, I'm going to take this material instance variable, and I am going to plug it in over here so that we now have a reference to it. That's all there is for the construction script. So next, we are going to start creating our functions one by one. So let's go over here. We are going to create a function that's going to be patrol, or called patrol. And first thing what I'm going to do in the patrol function is I'm going to go inside of a branch. So it's branch like that. So you need to spell it correctly in order for it to work. What is the condition for this branch? Well, I'm going to get these waypoints, and this is the variable for the waypoints, and from there I'm going to get, and we're going to get a copy for the waypoint at the current index, so, or basically the current point. So I'm going to copy it like that and plug it in over here. And next I'm going to right click here, I'm going to say get distance to, and we want the distance to ourselves, and we want the distance to the waypoint. So basically we're testing over here with this code And of course, adding over here less than or equal to, there you go. And from here, I'm going to say 100. So we are testing the distance between the current waypoint and the enemy. You see the target here is self referring to the enemy. So if that distance is less than 100 or less than or equal to 100, then from here, from true, I'm going to go inside of another branch, and it's branch, not branch. And I'm going to click here to move this node like this so that we can, see more clearly what is going on. This goes here. There you go. And from this branch, what I'm going to do is again take the waypoints. And next, I am going to get the length of these waypoints. So meaning the length of the array, how many elements do we have there? And from there, I am going to say minus integer, and I'm going to decrement one integer from the length, and just move this down. And I'm going to take the current waypoint, or current point, excuse me, and I'm going to test if that is less than or equal to. So there you go. So if the current point that we are, or basically this represents the index, and I can say over here current point, let me just rename it current point index, there you go, which is a little bit more readable and understandable. So if the current point index is less than or equal to the length minus 1, meaning that's the last index, and this is going to be plugged in over here. If that is the case, if that is true, I'm going to say set current point index, and that's going to be equal to 1. Otherwise, I'm going to take the current point index from here. But before that, I'm going to copy this one. And from him, I am going to say plus integer, and we are going to increment it by 1. There you go. Of course, we can do it another way, and that's up to you how you can increment it, if you know that. Just kidding. You probably do. You're not following this tutorial if you don't. Anyways, you get the point. So if the current point index is less than or equal to the length minus 1, then we need to reset it. If it's false, then we increase it by 1. So this is what we are doing here, which will bring us to the next point index. And in order, or what we are going to do with that, I'm going to go here. I'm going to say get controller. And from the controller, I'm going to go here in the false and say simple move to actor. And the controller is this one. And the goal where we want to go is going to be the waypoint. So waypoints. And I am going to get from here a copy, and that one is going to be here. But who am I going to get? Well, I'm going to get one at the current point index. There you go. So compile and save that. So essentially what's happening over here is that we are resetting a new point index depending on if we are close to the current one. And that would be pretty much it. And this is for the chase, actually, excuse me, for the patrol. And I said chase because now we're going to create the chase. And to create the chase, I am going to right click here and say get controller, which is referring to the pawn controller or the controller of this enemy. And from here, I am going to say simple move to actor. And controller is plugged in here. And here I'm going to right click and say get player pawn, which is referring to the player pawn. And that is our goal. This is going to be our chase, or this is how we are going to chase the player. Next, moving over here, I'm going to create the attack functionality. And for the attack, I am simply going to say spawn actor from class. Voila, there you go. And the actor is going to be projectile. So projectile, that's already prepared so that we don't have to go through that. There are gazillions of tutorials how to create projectiles. I also have them, so there you go. So over here for the attack, I'm going to take the shooter, which is this one over here. If I go select the shooter, there you go. You see, this is the shooter, which is placed over there. That would be it. And from the shooter, I am going to get the world location, which is going to get me the world location of the shooter. And from here, I'm going to make a transform of that, and that transform is going to be plugged in over here. But I'm also going to set the rotation, and in order to set the rotation for this transform, we are going to get the player pawn, which is referring to the player actor himself, and move this a little bit forward so that we can see what we are doing. So from the player, I'm going to get the actor location, and from his location, basically from here, I'm going to say find look at rotation, and this goes here, and then we're going to plug that in over here. So essentially what we are doing, we have the player, we have his location, and this find look at rotation, if I hover over, find a rotation for an object at the start location to point at target location. Basically, this function is going to give us a rotation that will make this one, which is at the start, so this one will be rotated towards this one, and in this case it's the shooter object from which we are going to spawn the projectile. So it needs to be rotated towards player so we can shoot in the player's direction. Over here we're going to say always spawn, ignore collisions, because we want to spawn our projectile every single time, because that's who we are. We are spawning projectiles. Over here, the next function is going to be called look for suspect, and you can already assume who is the suspect. From here, I'm going to say set world rotation, and we want to do this for the eyes. And the eyes are going to be used over here. The eyes are going to be used as a base for our looking, or where the enemy is going to look at. So setting over here the world rotation for the eyes, I'm going to plug them in over here, and I'm also going to copy them over here because I want to get from the eyes, get world location. It's world location, there you go. And I'm also going to do this over here, find look at rotation, and then this is going to be plugged in over here. But who am I going to plug in here as the target? Again, I'm going to right click, get player pawn, which is going to get us the player, and it's also going to get the actor location or the player's location and plug it in. So essentially we are going to rotate the eyes to look at the player in order to find where the player is. This is when it comes to the eyes and looking for the suspect function. Over here, creating the next function, reset eyes rotation, and what we are going to do with that is take the eyes and from here set relative rotation, and that will be plugged in over here, and 0 0 0 will be for all of these, well, for the rotation. That will be it. Going over here, we have the change color functionality, and what I'm going to do here, this change color is also going to have an input, and that is going to be new color, and here from the variable it's going to be the linear color. And what I'm going to do is take the material instance, if I can find it, here it is, and I'm going to set vector parameter value. So this one goes here, there you go. And the parameter value is going to be color. And I'm going to plug that in over here for the material instance. That is going to be our color. And next I'm going to set the material, but we are going to do that for the mesh. So from here, we're going to say set material for the mesh. Plug that in over here, and the material that we are going to set is going to be the material instance. There you go. This is just for changing the color of the enemy. So when we shoot with the enemy, we're going to make him red and stuff like that. So this is just, you know, some visual effects. Let's go over here in our functions and create a new one, which is going to be change speed, which is going to take an input type of float, and I'm going to call it new speed. So new speed, come on, there you go, and float, voila. And for the speed, we're going to get the character movement, and I'm going to get the max walk speed. I'm going to get it, not set it, if it allows me. So get max walk speed, there you go. And from here, we are going to lerp. So from here, I'm going to say lerp from A, which is the new speed, towards B, which is this one over here. And then I am going to set the alpha at 0.85 and take the character movement. And from here, I'm going to set the max walk speed, and that will be plugged in over here like that. There you go. And this goes over here. Voila. So lerp is going to go from A to B in this timely manner. That's what we are doing, essentially lerping, slowly moving from one value to another one, and then setting that value to the maximum speed. And that would be basically it. Next, we have a function that is going to calculate the distance to the player. So from here, new function, if I can rename it, there you go, get distance to player. And this function is going to return a value. So here we're going to have an output, and this is going to be distance, type of float, of course, because distance is a float value. And for that, I'm going to get the player pawn, which is our player. And from here, I'm going to right click and get distance to. And we want distance from our target self, from the enemy, and the other actor who is the player. And we want to plug that in the returning value, and that would be pretty much it. And last but not least, we have a function over here that I'm going to call eyes trace, which is going to make the eyes trace the player or where he is. And from here, I'm going to say line trace by channel. And we need to provide the start and the end location. So for that, I am going to get my eyes. And from here, I'm going to get the world location of the eyes. I'm also going to get the forward vector of the eyes, because we're looking in the forward direction with our eyes when we are searching the player. And from here, I'm going to plug in the start. So the start is from the eyes, and the end is the forward, but we also need to use the field of view. So from here, I'm going to multiply it with the float, and the float is going to be our field of view, if I can find it. Let me just see where it is. There you go, and plug it in. So multiply the forward vector with the field of view, and then add these two vectors together. There you go. And this one is the end. So this is the start. Let's assume this is the start, and the forward is in the forward direction by this many units. So by this many units, and then we add that together and plug it into the end for the line trace. Visibility here, none for the draw debug, whatever. And from there, we are going to get our hit, and we're going to break the hit result, because now we want to test if we cast to BP my character. So if we can actually see the player, and we are casting the hit actor to the player to see if we actually hit him or we can see him. If we cannot see him, we're going to set is in view to be false, because we cannot see the player. But if we can see the player, we're going to go inside of a branch, and we are going to perform a test to see if the player is dead. So is dead, and that is already taken care of inside of the player blueprint. You can check that out. So if the player is dead, if that is true, we are going to set here, set detection delay temp to 0. So that would be it. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this set is in view, and I'm also going to take this over here and plug that in. And over here, detection, let me just see where it is, detection delay, and plug that in over here. Compile and save that. So essentially what's happening, if we can hit the player, if the cast fails, player is not in the view. If the cast succeeds, then we are going to go in the branch. Is the player dead? If it's true, detection delay is 0. If he is not dead, that means it's false, then the player is in view, and detection delay will be delayed by the value that we specified over here. And these are all the functions that we need, or that we are going to use to, make all of this happen. And the pretty stuff are going to happen here inside of our event graph. So the first thing that I'm going to do is right click here and create a custom event that I'm going to call player. If I can zoom in to see that, there we go. So player, not platter, it's player detected event. And what's this going to do is from here, we're going to set is in view. And we are going to set that value to be equal to true. And from there, we are going to set the detection delay temp from there to the value of the detection delay that we have over here. So this is what's going to happen when we detect the player. The player is in view and reset the detection delay value. Moving forward, we are going to add on component begin overlap for the detection area. So I'm going to click on it, go here, right click, add event and collision, and on component begin overlap. This is something that I want you to test out. We're not going to use that because from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast to BP my character, and I'm casting, of course, the other actor. And if we can cast that, if the cast succeeds, then we are going to say here is that. So we're going to get is that from the player, and inside of the branch we are going to test that. So if the player is not dead when we collide with him, then over here I'm going to say set is suspicious, is suspicious. What is this? Is suspicious. This is what I want. So why? There you go. So if the character is dead, is suspicious is false, but if it's false, if the character is not dead, then is suspicious is going to be true. And same thing over here. As I said, we're not going to, you will see functions that we are going to create for this, but as I said, you can test it out. And from here, I'm going to unbreak this link, or break this link basically. So select the detection area. Let's go here, select the detection area, right click, add collision on component end. And from here, I'm going to cast, same thing as we did, cast the other actor. And we are going to set the is suspicious to be false. And there you go. And this is an additional layer where we can detect the player. So that would be on your own end to test it out. From here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to get the event hit. And from this event hit, I am going to cast to BP my character. And what this is going to do is if we bump into the player and the other is the one who's going to be casted, if I can plug it in correctly, there you go. So if we bump into the player in the game, then over here, I'm going to say set is in view to be equal to true, because the enemy bumped into the player, and that will be it. And from here, then I'm going to say set detection delay, it's delay temp, voila, to the detection delay, which is this one over here, and plug it in, compile, and save that. So now this is where the fun begins, because inside of right click and the tick event, we are going to go inside of our sequence. I'm going to move this down. You can later on move it up wherever you want to move it, but we're going to go in a sequence, and the sequence will be executed first this one, then this one, then this one. We are going to have two more, so 0, 1, 2, and 3. The first sequence is going to take the eyes trace function, which is going to have the eyes search for the player. And this is what we are doing. And over here we go. We explain this over here, line trace by channel, you get all of that stuff. So after we do that, then we are going to go inside of the next branch, which is going to compare the float. And from here, I'm going to do it like this. This one is going to go over here. There you go. And the float that we are going to compare, so I'm going to move it probably a little bit here. There you go. The float that we are going to compare is the detection delay temp. So I'm going to input that, and we're going to compare that with the value of 0. So if it is greater than 0, that means we need to subtract from it. So we need to say set here detection delay temp. So we need to set that value and move this here, something like that. This goes over here. And I'm going to get detection delay temp. And from it, I'm going to say minus float. And the one that I'm subtracting, finally, there is the word. I'm going to get the world delta seconds, voila, and plug this in, and then plug that value over here. And there you go. Of course, after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the distance to player. And the distance, I'm going to compare float. And the comparison is going to be with the attack distance. So let me just find it over here. So attack distance, here it is. and plug that in over here. So compare that with the basically input goes here and the attack distance goes here. If it's greater, so if the distance between the player is greater than the attack distance, then we're going to set the alert mode, and the alert mode is going to be chase, because the distance, the attack distance, or the distance between the player and the enemy is greater than the attack distance. There you go. If it's equal to, then we're going to set the alert mode to the attack, and also if it's less than. So if it's equal to or less than, we are going to alert the enemy that the player is nearby, attack him, kill him, destroy him, and all of that stuff. Moving back over here to our first comparison. So if the detection delay temp is equal to or less than 0, we are going to go inside of a branch. So both of these go in a branch, and this branch is going to test if is suspicious. So get is suspicious. There you go, finally. So we are getting that value. If it's true, then we're going to set the alert mode to suspicious. If it's not true, so if it's false, then we're going to set that to patrol. And again, this suspicious will be detected with the detection area, which is, as I said, something that I want you to test out, basically. So from the next sequence over here, which goes over here, we're going to get, or first we need to get the alert mode, which is the one that we have just set. And from it, we are going to create a switch. And then this control or this sequence goes into there. And what we are going to do here is basically the core of the enemy. So if the alert mode is set to attack, we are going to change the speed. So change speed, and the speed is going to be changed to the attack speed. Let me just set that over here. There you go. So it will be changed to the attack speed, and then we are going to change the color of the enemy, which is going to set the enemy's color. And the color can be, let's go over here and set it to reddish. After that, we're going to look for the suspect. So look for suspect, which is our player, if we can spot him. And then we are going to go in another sequence. And this sequence is going to have two executions. The first one is going to enter a delay state, so almost typed state. So delay, and the delay is going to be the fire rate by which we are going to control the fire of the enemy so that he doesn't shoot the player like crazy. And then we're going to get inside of a branch, and we are going to test get is in view. So if the player now is in the view, then we are going to attack the player. That's simply pretty much it, what we are going to do. Else over here, basically not else from the branch, but over here in this sequence, and I'm going to move this just a bit forward. And in this sequence, we're going to get the distance to player. So this is the second thing that we're doing with this sequence. And then we are going to compare float, and we are comparing the input, which is the distance, to the stop movement distance. So from here, we're going to say get stop movement distance. Move this a little bit forward. This is going to test if we are close enough to the player to stop the movement. If it's greater, so the distance between the player and the enemy is greater than the stop distance, then we are going to chase or continue chasing the player. If it's not, then we are going to get the character movement. And from here, I'm going to say stop movement immediately. So immediately to stop the movement, and equal to and less than, these two go over here. So if the enemy is close enough to the player to stop movement, then he is going to stop. Over here, if we are in the chase, we are going to change the speed. So change the speed to the chase speed. And let me just find it here. There you go. And move it a little bit forward. Just plug it in over here. We're also going to change the color to the same one that we have here, which is going to be the reddish color. And then we are going to look for suspect. And the last thing is we are going to chase. Simple as that. There you go. Maybe we can move these a little bit forward. So these just a little bit forward. There you go. Voila. Compile and save that. So if the player is now suspicious, which is going to happen over here, we're going to change the speed and we are going to set that to the suspicious speed. Here it is, plug it in. And then we are going to change the color, and not this one, so delete this one, and the color will be changed. The color, I don't know, can be something yellowish like this, orangey, yellowish, whatever you want. And from here, we're going to look for suspect, which is going to look where the player is. And from there, we are going to go into the patrol. Voila. And like this, leave it, because the last one, which is the patrol one, we are going to change the speed over here. And these can go just a little bit forward. Voila. So that we can have everything clearly laid out and see where everything is. So change the speed to the patrol speed. Let me just find the patrol speed. Here it is. Get it and plug it in. And from there, we are going to change the color. So copy it and put it over here. And I don't know, you can set the color to whatever, greenish or something like that. There you go. And then we are going to reset eyes rotation because we're patrolling. And then from there, we are going to plug into the patrol to patrol and search, hypothetically search for the player. And now we have the last sequence for the player, actually for the enemy, which is going to enter a branch. And it's going to go here. And I am also going to take it like this. There you go. So we can separate these nodes from one another and see what's happening, what we are doing, and all of that stuff. So what I'm going to do for this branch, I'm going to right click and say get player pawn. And from there, I'm going to test if is valid. And this one is the one that we want without the question mark. And this goes inside of the condition. And if that is true, we are going to cast to BP my character. And I am going to cast the player pawn. So from here, cast the player pawn if that is true. And from there, we are going to test if the is dead. So if the player is dead, then enter a branch like that, plug it in, there you go. And from here, do once, which is only going to execute once. And here false is going to reset it. Set detection delay temp to 0.1. Compile and save that. This is if the player is dead. If he is not dead, it is going to reset the output. And I can take this over here and take this whole pin and move it there. So this is pretty much what we are going to do for our player. Now, next, where the magic is going to happen is going to be inside of our BP light or patrol light actor. The first thing that I'm going to do here is create a function set cone light, which is going to change the light of the cone. And from here, we are going to have an input, which is going to be new color. And the color or the parameter is going to be linear color. Voila, there you go. I'm going to take the cone and I am going to say here, create dynamic. So dynamic material instance and plug this in over here. The material, so the material from here is going to be the cone material. This is the one that we want. Name, we are not going to touch that. Next, we are going to set the vector. So from the returning value, we are going to set the vector parameter value. This goes here. The parameter name is going to be cone color. It's cone color. There you go. We also need to plug in the new color here. So click here to create these nodes and make it, make it better looking. And next, we are going to take the cone again, which is this one. And from here, set the material and plug it in over here. And the material that we are going to set is the returning value, which is this one over here. take this and double click it again to create extra lines on this node, or extra dots on this node, line node, whatever, you get the point anyways. But this is what we are going to do to change the color. And we saw in the preview what does that mean, why we're changing the color and all of that stuff, because when we detect the player, we're going to have one color and yada yada yada. So let's go here and begin play. So from the begin play, we are going to set the current distance to 0. So reset that value. We are also going to set the total distance and move this bad boy from here, because I'm going to get this spline, which is the parent of other components, and I'm going to get the spline length. Voila, and set that over here as the total distance. Next, we are going to set the light color. So take the spotlight, and from the light, set the light color. And this goes over here, plug it in, and there you go. And the color is going to be the idle color. So idle color, and plug that in. And next we are going to set the cone color. So we're going to set cone color, which is the function that we have just created. Again, setting it to the idle color. Compile and save that. So what we are going to do next? Well, inside of our tick event, so let's go here and create the tick event. Voila, this is the bad boy we want. And from him, I'm going to go inside of a branch, and that branch is going to test if we can move. So if the light can move, if that is true, we are going to set the current distance and move it over here. The current distance is going to be taking the current distance from here, and I'm going to plus another float to it. So add another float to it, and that float is going to be from here, get world delta seconds. We can get them from here, delta seconds as well, but I prefer to do it like this. It's much easier. This is going to be plugged in here like that. This goes here. And I'm going to get the delta seconds and multiply that with another float, and that float is going to be the speed, which is basically the movement speed of the cone or the light, and plug that in over here. So these values are the ones that I'm going to add to each other. Next, I'm going to take the scene over here component and set the world location, not this one. So delete this one, set world location. Here it is, and plug it in. So for the scene one, and the location is going to be getting it from the spline here, and get location at distance along the spline. And that distance, let's move this a little bit here. This goes here, this goes here. The distance is this one over here, the current distance. And we want it inside of the world location, and there you go. So we can plug it in like that, compile and save that, which is going to set the scene's world location. After that, we are going to compare a float, and this is going to move our light, by the way. So this is going to compare the current distance with the total distance. So current distance with the total distance, as I already mentioned. And if it's greater than or equal to, then we're going to set the current distance, reset it back to 0. And then we will calculate the new distance again and move the light again on that new distance and all of that stuff. So the next step from here, from the false, if we cannot move, is that we are going to go inside of a gate. And this is not it's not Bill Gates. I wanted to say Bill Gates, but no, this is Gates. So this is definitely not Bill Gates. Anyways, moving forward, over here, we're going to create a custom event, and this is going to be open chase player gate. And this is going to open the gate, because a good thing with this gate is that we can control the flow. We open it, and then we can execute whatever it is there. If we close it, nothing will be executed, and you get the point. So what we are going to do next is create a new custom event. So custom event, and this one's going to be close chase player gate. from there, and this one's going to go here in the close, which is going to, you know, close it. So what's gonna happen inside of this gate? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is that we are going to go inside of a branch, and we want to test the player, which we have over here, that we will get a reference to in a moment. Don't worry about that. We're going to test if he is valid, and not if his name is valid, but if he is valid from here. And I'm going to say and, because we want to test another Boolean, which is basically is dead, but we're going to test it with not. So if the player is valid and he is not dead, then we're going to plug this into the condition. So if we have the player, he is valid and he is not dead, what's going to happen? Well, first things first, what's going to happen is that I'm going to take the scene, and from the scene, I'm going to set the world location. This is what we want. This goes in the true. There you go, and this goes over here, voila, like that. Next, what I'm going to do is copy the scene, and we want to get world location of the scene, and then I am going to move this a little bit further, and from here I'm going to say vinterp2, which is going to go from the current, and this is going to plug in over here. So it's going to go from the current value towards the target value, and the target value is going to be from the player, and get actor. What did I just do? So let me delete the comment. So from player, get actor location. And we are going to break the player's location. So split pin structure. This can go over here, move it a little bit forward. This, basically, I need to move all of these a little bit forward because we have the false part of the branch, and these two can be moved here. So what I'm going to do is breaking that vector, and then I'm going to break this over here as well. So here goes X, here goes Y, and for the Z, I'm going to break this vector. So I'm going to not promote, right click, and can I break this? Actually, no, I need to break it from here. So break vector, there you go. I was looking what I'm doing. So anyways, so this Z goes over here like that. And for the delta time, we are going to right click, and let me just click here, move it. So get world delta seconds. This is going to be our delta time, but if I can move just these a little bit forward so that it is more readable. And delta seconds is that, and the interp speed is going to be 1. So essentially, we are going to go from the current towards the target X, Y, and Z, which are the ones that we have just set, as you saw, in the timely manner that we have specified over here, which is delta time. And it is going to, I believe, behind the scenes multiply with this interp speed. I don't know, I'm not sure. But anyways, after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this guard, which is basically the enemy, and I'm going to rename him to enemy and not the guard. There you go. And I am going to test if he is valid. So is valid with the question mark, because we need to execute that. So if the enemy is valid, then from here we're going to call the player detected event. And there you go. This is all happening inside of this branch. If we have the player and he's valid and all of that stuff, that means we have collided with him, and now we are moving the cone or the light towards the player, but at the same time we are informing the enemy that we have, detected the player, and the enemy should act accordingly. After that, here inside, or basically in the false, we are going to go inside of the delay, and here the delay is going to last 0.5 of seconds, so half a second this delay is going to last. And what this delay is going to do is going to set the light color. So I'm going to take the spotlight and set light color, which is going to change the color of the light to the idle color. So from here, I'm going to right click, come on, right click, actually get the idle color from here. There you go. Plug it in. There you go. I'm also going to set the cone color. So set cone color. And again, it's going to be the idle one. So plug that in over here. And we are going to close So from here, close chase player gate. And this is basically when we have the player. See, he's not valid and he is either not valid or dead. So one of the two. Then we're going to close the gate. And from here, we are going to get our timeline. So let me just see here, add the timeline. I'm going to call it close gate timeline. And we're going to play it from the start and double click this timeline because this timeline is going to be a float one that I'm going to call here value. And the length is going to be 2 and I'm going to add a curve to it. And this one is going to be at 0, 0. So click on it, 0, 0, there you go. And the next one, so right click over here, this one is going to be 2 and 1. So at the time of 2, this is going to be at the value of 1. So let's go back in the event. When we are finished from here, we're going to say set can move to be equal to true. Now we can move. But from the update, what I'm going to do is add world offset. So from the update, I'm going to say add world offset, there you go. And the offset is going to be for our scene 1. So take the scene 1 as the target. Come on. And from whatever reason, set world offset. There you go. Now we can have it. So this goes, update goes over here. There you go. And I'm going to take the scene from here. And I am going to get the world location. There you go. And we are going to have a lerp again. So lerp and lerp from our current vector, which is the location of the scene. This is going to go here in the delta. And we are going to take the spline. And from the spline, we're going to get the location at distance along the spline and take it over here. This is going to be plugged in here. There you go. And the value is going to go here in the alpha. Voila. And the distance here is going to be for the world, but the distance value is going to be current distance. So right click current distance and plug it in over here. Compile and save that. And that would be everything what we need to do in regards to moving and detecting the player with the light. The last step over here is to actually detect the player. So I'm going to right click and we want the actor begin overlap or on actor begin overlap, whatever this is called. And we are going to cast to BP my character. We're casting the other actor to my character. And here we're going to get the reference to the player. So here he is. So set the player because now the cast has worked and this is our player. When that happens, we're going to change the light color. So spotlight, we're going to say set light color. And that color is going to be set to the alert color, which is going to be the red color. Here it is. We're also going to set the cone color, which is again going to be the alert color or the red color in our case. And from here, can move is going to be equal to false. And then we are going to open chase player gate so that we can chase the player. So when the cone detects or the light detects our player, then we're opening this gate. In the meantime, over here, if we can move, we are going to move our light. So it's going to move in the level left, right, up and down and all of that stuff. You get the point. And then from here, as you can, already see, we are going to go inside of this gate, which is when the can move is false, which we set over here when we detect the player. So then we're going to open the gate and then we're going to start chasing the player, which is going to enable the enemy to see where the player is and attack the player and all of that stuff. So compile and save that, and also make sure that you compile and save for the enemy. And here as well, if I hit the play button, look at that. So we have the player can move, and you see the light is also moving. Now it has detected the player. Look at the light, and the enemy is shooting the player. Look at that, shooting, 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 shooting. Now we're dead. And now when we don't have the player, again, the light resets itself and goes over here and the enemy is patrolling. You can see the green enemy. If I spawn the player again, there you go. When the light detects me, bam, 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 bam. And that will be pretty much it for this tutorial. If you want more tutorials, then go in my Game Development Academy. Link is down below, awesomedudes.com, Game Development Academy. Click it, enroll it right now. I want to see you there. I'm waiting here in this video until you do that. Just kidding. But anyways, I also subscribe to the channel and all of that stuff. You get the point. And I will see you guys in the next video.